A hitting position is defined of the way the body looks when the stride foot hits the ground. When the stride foot hits the ground, just about every big league player is in a similar position. And that goes from Paul Konerko all the way back to the days of Babe Ruth. Now at the big league level, and with our advanced hitters, I give them a lot of freedom in the way they want to stand at home plate. They're all different individuals. They have different strengths and weaknesses as individuals and as hitters. So they have some freedom in the way they want to start. We want to be comfortable. At your age group, we want to try to cut down some of the body movement to make it easier for them to get into a strong hitting position, the correct hitting position. So when I say cut down body movement, you see here Konerko is what I call a neutral stance, and he's a narrow neutral. You can picture Ichiro in your mind. Ichiro is a guy that's in a narrow stance. His feet are inside the shoulder. Konerko here is just on the wider side of narrow or on the narrower side of neutral. Neutral is when you're slightly outside your shoulder. If you think of a guy like Albert Pujols or even Carlos Quentin who start in extremely wide stances. What I encourage youth players to do, and it's not an absolute, it's just a suggestion, is to start with your feet outside your shoulders in a good athletic position, similar to what we were doing when we started playing catch or we're getting ready to play infield defense. But what you're looking for there is that the back foot is going to be pointed straight ahead. That is a huge problem, and I guarantee 90-95% of your kids, if they're 12 and under, are going to do that wrong. The back foot has to be pointed straight ahead, because physiologically that closes his back hip. And you know in just a minute, when we rotate our hips, and that's going to be the most powerful part of the swing, or the part that transfers energy into the baseball, that hip rotation is a big part of it. If his toes are pointed out, his hip bones point out as well. And what ends up happening during rotation, that back hip's going to get stuck back there. It's not going to fully rotate. And then that foot ends up being like a 1,000-pound weight they're dragging behind it. So as long as the foot's pointed straight ahead, then physiologically the back hip is going to be straight ahead as well, and he can rotate his hips forward. Next absolute in the swing, knees have to be inside your ankles in your stance. At no time in your stance, what we call our negative move, our load, which I'll show you in a minute, our stride or our swing, is the rear knee going to go over the ankle. It's got to stay inside the ankle all the time. Posture. We want an upright posture where the chin is slightly over the toes. The head is a big part of what these guys do and what we do as big league guys, as hitters. But the head of a youth player, 12 and under, is the heaviest part of their upper body. And when it moves just a little bit, it ends up being like a tree that's falling down. It goes faster and faster, whichever way, correct or incorrect. So what we try to stress with them is we're going to stay chin over toes in our entire swing. Now you can overdo that as well. And overdoing that would be the kid, you'll see a lot of these guys that punch completely over in their stance. That's not what I'm talking about. Slightly chin over toes. My butt does stick out a little bit, but I'm in that same good athletic position. A slight chest lean forward. The reason why I say we don't do it too much, I want to have an upright but correct chin over toes posture, is the taller the line is through the spine, the more direct that is, the faster I can rotate, the faster my bat's speaking. The more that spine tilts, the more that I tilt over, the more I'm punched over to start, which is going to lead to shoulder tilts, the slower I can rotate, the slower the bat speed. Now there are certain pitches that increase the amount of tilt. A low pitch will increase my shoulder tilt, or a pitch away will increase my shoulder tilt. So why do pitchers throw the ball low and away? Because physically it is impossible to rotate as fast on that pitch, therefore I should not be able to hit that ball as far. There's a reason for that. So we try to emphasize that, though we want to keep a tall posture in our stance. A whipping grip. The bat is going to do some of the work for us. You know, we heard as Little League coaches when we were growing up that our middle knuckles have to be lined up. We got a couple of big league players, or former big league players here. I think they probably still play in the big leagues, are both in good shape. But I doubt, and I'm asking you off the cuff, Lou and Michael, did you have your middle knuckles exactly lined up? No. Yeah. Did you? Close, yeah. And I think most guys are somewhere between the middle knocking knuckles and somewhere between the fat punching knuckles. Now the problem arises when you get the fat punching knuckles lined up with one another. Now we're choking the bat, holding it way deep in our hands. We do an index finger test. An index finger test is when they pull the bat on the shoulder and stick the index fingers up. They may not point exactly in the same direction because, again, I doubt any, maybe very few, less than 5% of big leaguers, and I'm just throwing that number out there, have their middle knuckles exactly lined up, but they're somewhat close. So when you stick the index fingers up on the bat, they should be pretty close to point in the same direction. That's my normal grip right there. You see they're not exactly lined up, but they're close. But the big problem occurs is when they're pointing in opposite directions. Now I'm choking the bat, the bat's deep in my hand, and this thing, which should be doing some of the work for me, is now just being controlled by my huge upper body muscles on my shoulders and chest, which unfortunately they're bigger muscles in the swing, but they just slow me down and pull me off path. So think of it like a hammer. If I were hammering in this nail into the ground, the bat or the hammerhead would do a lot of the work for me if I hold it correctly. If I hold it this way, now it's deep in my hands and I don't get that same wrist action. Now my shoulders have to do all the work in the swing. The barrel head loses its whip action. So that grip is important, and they will fight you on it because it doesn't feel comfortable to them. If they can just put the bat down, put it in where their calluses would be on their hand, and close it there, that's a correct grip. Or hold it down like a golfer and whip it from side to side or up and down. If they can do that, that's a correct grip. But you'll see right away that they lose that barrel action, that whip action with that when they hold it incorrectly. So those are the 4 absolutes of the stance. And absolutes mean we absolutely have to do those things correctly. Now, I mentioned a negative move. A lot of young players aren't ready to understand going back before going forward. But it happens in the swing. But what can get them to do it without having to think about it is 2 things. When I'm standing at the plate, I'm not a statue. I have rhythm. The body stays in motion. If they've never had rhythm before or foreign to that concept, rhythm simply means if I can rock back and forth from one ball of the foot to the other, and you can do it a variety of different ways. It's just a suggestion. If I can go from one ball of the foot to the other, small movements are good, slow movements are good. Because we try to create a slow tempo in my setup. Think of the swing working in 2 different speeds. It's slow in the setup until I get to foot down. Then when I get to foot down, it changes gears. It goes right from 1st gear to 4th gear, and I become very explosive. I want to be slow so I can control and take my body energy to a strong game position to get all that energy into baseball. We've all heard or heard coaches say, hey, stay back, stay back. Stay back, in that term, doesn't mean keep all your weight on your back leg the entire time. Now we say that because you see the kids that are out on their front foot. The reason they're on their front foot is because they don't control their bodies in stride. And that's hard to do. But stay back means I'm in control of my body on the way into toe touch. So if I can do that slowly, slow rhythm, slow step, I'm in control of my body. And the younger I am, the more important that is. So the rhythm is going to help them transition back before I go forward. And to the next part that I'm saying. When I take my step, the absolute